The day we closed on our beach house was supposed to be the happiest day of our lives. After 5 years of saving every penny, working overtime, and sacrificing vacations and dinners out, we finally had the keys to our slice of paradise in Malibu. The realtor had handed them over with a champagne toast, and I'd cried actual tears of joy as we drove up to the property that afternoon. Can you believe it, Ethan? It's actually ours. I ran my hand along the smooth quartz of the kitchen island, still in disbelief. The sound of waves crashing against the shore filtered through the open windows, a soundtrack I'd dreamed of falling asleep to for years. We did it, Mia. Ethan wrapped his arms around my waist, nuzzling my neck. His dark hair tickled my cheek. No more cramped apartment in the valley. No more hour-long commutes. Just this. Just this, I echoed, turning in his arms to face the floor-to-ceiling windows that showcased the Pacific Ocean in all its glory. The late afternoon sun cast golden ripples across the water, and for a moment I felt like we were standing inside a painting. $1.8 million worth of this. It had been a stretch financially. My job as a marketing director for a mid-sized tech company paid well, and Ethan's position as a financial analyst brought in a respectable sum. But property in Malibu doesn't come cheap. We'd needed to combine our life savings, take out a substantial mortgage, and I'd even dipped into the inheritance my grandmother had left me when she passed 3 years ago. Worth every penny, Ethan said, and I nodded in agreement. We'd chosen this specific house not just for the breathtaking views or the private beach access, but because it had potential as an investment property too. During the tourist season, houses like this could command $7,000 a week in rental income. We'd planned to rent it out during peak months to help offset the mortgage, staying in our apartment in the valley during those periods. I still can't believe the sellers accepted our offer, I said, walking toward the west-facing deck. There were at least 3 other couples at the open house who looked ready to kill for this place. It was your letter, Ethan said, following me outside. The realtor told me the sellers were touched by your story about wanting to build a family here, about how you'd dreamed of raising children by the ocean. I smiled, remembering the heartfelt 3-page letter I'd stayed up all night writing. Well, it wasn't a lie. I can already picture our kids running around on that beach. I pointed to the stretch of sand below our property. Building sandcastles, learning to swim. Ethan's arms tightened around me. 2 kids. Right? A boy and a girl. Eventually, I agreed. But first, let's enjoy being newlyweds in our dream house. We'd been married just 8 months after dating for 4 years. We'd met in college. I was completing my master's in marketing and he was finishing his business degree. Our first date had been coffee at the campus cafe, which had turned into lunch, which had turned into dinner, which had turned into breakfast the next morning. We'd been inseparable ever since. Should we christen every room? Ethan's voice took on that husky quality that still made my stomach flutter, even after all these years. Absolutely. I turned to kiss him, tasting the champagne on his lips. But first I need to set up the security system. Ethan groaned. Can't that wait until tomorrow? We have a bottle of Dom Perignon getting warm. It'll only take 15 minutes, I promised. The tech guy walked me through it yesterday. I just need to sync the cameras to my phone. Our security system had been my non-negotiable addition to the house. The property was somewhat isolated, sitting on a stretch of beach with neighbouring houses spaced far apart for privacy. While Malibu was generally safe, the isolation made me nervous. I'd insisted on a comprehensive system, cameras covering every entrance, motion sensors, and a direct line to a security company. Fine, Ethan sighed dramatically. I'll unpack the kitchen essentials while you play with your spy gear. I gave him a quick kiss before retrieving my laptop from my bag. Setting up the system was straightforward. I created an account, connected to our home Wi-Fi, and paired the 6 cameras that had been installed the day before. Within minutes, I had crystal-clear feeds from the front entrance, back deck, side doors, and garage displaying on both my laptop and phone. All set, I called out to Ethan. Now we'll know if any celebrities try to trespass on our private beach. When there was no response, I walked back to the kitchen, expecting to find him arranging our plates and glasses. Instead, the kitchen was empty, our boxes still sealed on the counter. Ethan, I called out, moving toward the master bedroom. Perhaps the champagne and excitement had gone to his head, and he was setting up a romantic surprise. The bedroom was empty too, the king-sized bed still covered in plastic from delivery. Through the windows, I caught a glimpse of movement on the deck. Ethan was outside, his phone pressed to his ear, gesturing animatedly as he paced back and forth. I was about to join him when my own phone vibrated with a notification. The motion sensor at the front door had been triggered. Curious, I opened the security app to check the camera feed. A silver Mercedes SUV I didn't recognize had pulled into our driveway. The camera angle captured a woman in her early 60s emerging from the driver's seat. She was impeccably dressed in white linen pants and a blue silk blouse, her silver-streaked dark hair styled in an elegant bob. Even through the grainy feed, I could make out her pearl earrings and matching necklace. Patricia Wilson, my mother-in-law. My stomach clenched instinctively. In the year since I'd met her, Patricia had made it abundantly clear that she found me lacking as a wife for her precious son. Nothing I did was ever quite right. My cooking was too bland. My career too demanding. My background too ordinary. According to Patricia, Ethan deserved someone from a good family with proper connections. Someone like the daughter of her country club friends, whom she'd tried to set him up with for years before he met me. I watched as she retrieved a large gift basket from the passenger seat and made her way to our front door. Her gait confident and purposeful. The doorbell chimed throughout the house. "Ethan," I called out, "your mother's here." He appeared in the doorway to the deck, his expression oddly flustered. "My mother? Are you sure?" I held up my phone, showing him the camera feed. "Unless you know another impeccably dressed woman who drives a Mercedes and looks like she's judging everything she sees." Ethan's laugh sounded forced. "She mentioned she might stop by with a housewarming gift. I forgot to tell you." Before I could respond, the doorbell rang again, more insistently this time. "I'll get it," Ethan said quickly, already moving toward the front of the house. I followed a few steps behind, curious about this unexpected visit. Through the security app, I watched as Ethan opened the door, and Patricia immediately enveloped him in a hug, the large gift basket awkwardly crushed between them. "Darling," her voice carried through the entryway, "the house is even more magnificent than you described." "Mum, what a surprise," Ethan said, his tone overly bright. "We weren't expecting you until next weekend." "I simply couldn't wait to see it," Patricia replied, sweeping past him into the foyer. Her eyes darted around, taking in every detail of our new home. "After all, it's not every day my son buys such a spectacular property." I stepped forward, plastering on my most welcoming smile. "Hello, Patricia. How nice of you to stop by." Her gaze landed on me, and her smile dimmed several watts. "Mia, don't you look comfortable?" Her eyes took in my jeans and simple white t-shirt, which had been practical for moving day but clearly didn't meet her standards. "We've been unpacking," I explained, though I knew no explanation would suffice. In Patricia's world, women should look magazine-ready at all times, even when carrying boxes. "Well, this is for you both." She thrust the gift basket toward me. "Some essentials for your new home. Imported olive oils, artisanal pasta, and a bottle of Chateau Margaux 2015. It was an exceptional year." "That's very thoughtful," I said, accepting the heavy basket. "Would you like a tour?" "Ethan promised to show me around," Patricia replied, linking her arm through her son's. "Didn't you, darling?" Ethan nodded, avoiding my eyes. "I did. Why don't you put that basket away, Mia, while I show Mum the house?" Something about his eagerness to separate us made me uneasy, but I nodded. "Sure, I'll open the wine." As they disappeared down the hallway, I heard Patricia's voice drift back to me. "The location is absolutely perfect. Ethan, just as we discussed, and those views worth every penny." Just as we discussed? When had they discussed our house? Ethan had told me his mother knew we were house hunting, but he'd never mentioned specific properties to her, at least not that he'd told me about. I pushed the thought aside as I unpacked the gift basket in the kitchen. It was exactly the kind of extravagant, over-the-top gesture that Patricia specialised in, a way of reminding us that she had exquisite taste and the means to indulge it. The basket probably cost more than our entire month's grocery budget. I was just uncorking the wine when my phone vibrated again. Another security alert, this time from the camera monitoring the back deck. I opened the app, expecting to see Ethan and Patricia admiring the ocean view. Instead, I saw them in what appeared to be an intense conversation. The camera didn't capture audio, but their body language spoke volumes. Patricia was gesturing expansively, her face animated with excitement. Ethan was nodding, a smile playing on his lips. Then Patricia embraced him again, this time kissing both his cheeks in that European way she affected despite having never lived outside of California. What caught my attention, though, was what happened next. Patricia reached into her handbag and removed what looked like a document folder. She handed it to Ethan, who opened it, reviewed the contents briefly, and then signed something with a pen she provided. My curiosity piqued. I poured 3 glasses of wine and made my way to the deck. As I approached, I could hear their conversation through the open door. Absolutely perfect timing, Patricia was saying. Martin can have everything transferred by the end of the week. Are you sure about this, Mom? Ethan's voice held a note of hesitation. It's a big decision. Darling, I've never been more certain of anything, Patricia replied firmly. After all, this place is exactly what I've been looking for, close enough to visit you regularly, but with all the privacy I need. I froze in the doorway, wine glasses balanced precariously in my hands. What was she talking about? They both turned at my approach, and Patricia's expression shifted from excitement to careful neutrality so quickly I almost doubted what I'd seen. Wine! How lovely! She exclaimed, reaching for a glass. We were just admiring the sunset. Isn't it magnificent? I handed Ethan his glass, studying his face. There was a flush to his cheeks that hadn't been there before, and he couldn't quite meet my eyes. What were you two discussing? I asked, trying to keep my tone light. It looked rather serious. Oh, just some family business, Patricia said dismissively. Nothing for you to worry about. If it involves Ethan, it involves me, I pointed out, an edge creeping into my voice despite my best efforts. Patricia's smile tightened. Of course. Dear, Ethan will fill you in later, I'm sure. She turned to her son. Won't you, darling? Before Ethan could respond, Patricia's phone chimed. She glanced at it and sighed dramatically. That's my reminder. I have dinner with the Morgans at 7, and I simply can't be late. Elizabeth has been dying to hear all about my Mediterranean cruise. She drained her wine glass in one impressive gulp and handed it back to me. The house is absolutely perfect, Ethan. Everything we hoped for. She patted his cheek affectionately. I'll call you tomorrow about the other arrangements. With a quick air kiss in my direction, she swept back through the house toward the front door, leaving me alone with Ethan on the deck. The document folder had disappeared, presumably into his pocket or back to Patricia. What was that about? I asked as soon as we heard the front door close. Ethan took a large swallow of his wine. Nothing important, just some investment advice Mum wanted to share. Investment advice that required you to sign something. His eyes widened slightly. You were watching us. I got a security alert on my phone, I explained. The motion sensor on the deck activated the camera. I saw your mother give you some kind of document to sign. Ethan's expression darkened. You were spying on me? I wasn't spying, I protested. I was checking the security system, which is doing exactly what it's supposed to do, and you're changing the subject. He sighed, running a hand through his hair, a nervous gesture I recognized from our early dating days. It's nothing to worry about, Mia. Just some paperwork for a family trust, boring legal stuff. Something didn't add up. What did she mean by, this place is exactly what I've been looking for, and what arrangements is she calling about tomorrow? Mum's thinking of buying in the area, Ethan said after a slight hesitation. She asked for my opinion on the market here. It was a plausible explanation, but the knot in my stomach wouldn't ease. Patricia had never expressed any interest in living by the beach before. In fact, she'd often complained about the salt air being bad for her complexion when we'd invited her to join us for dinners in Santa Monica. Why didn't you mention she was thinking of moving? I pressed. Because it just came up recently, Ethan replied, an edge of irritation in his voice. And honestly, Mia, it's been a long day. Can we just enjoy our first night in our new home without an interrogation? The deflection was so unlike Ethan that it momentarily stunned me into silence. In our 5 years together, he'd never dismissed my concerns this way. We'd always been open with each other, sometimes to a fault, like the time he'd confessed to an embarrassing crush on my college roommate, or when I'd admitted I hated the expensive watch he'd given me for my birthday. You're right, I said finally, deciding to let it go for now. It's been a long day. His relief was palpable. Let's finish that champagne, order some takeout, and christen at least one room tonight. I forced a smile. That sounds perfect. But as we walked back into the house, the uneasy feeling followed me. Something had shifted in those few minutes, some invisible fault line opening between us. And though I tried to push it from my mind as we toasted our new beginning with Dom Perignon on our still plastic-wrapped bed, I couldn't shake the sense that Patricia's visit had marked the end of something I couldn't yet name. The next morning, I woke to sunlight streaming through the uncovered windows and the rhythmic sound of waves crashing against the shore. For a moment, I lay perfectly still, savouring the realisation that this peaceful awakening would now be my daily reality. The space beside me was empty, the sheets cold. Ethan was an early riser, a habit from his college swimming days that even weekend mornings couldn't break. I stretched languidly, remembering our champagne-fueled lovemaking the night before. We'd fallen asleep without unpacking a single box, content to celebrate our new beginning in the most primal way. Wrapping myself in a robe, I padded through the house in search of coffee and my husband. The kitchen was still a maze of unopened boxes, but Ethan had managed to set up the coffee maker, a $900 Italian machine that had been his one non-negotiable purchase for the new house. A full pot sat waiting. Still hot. "Ethan!" I called out, pouring myself a cup. No answer. Through the kitchen windows I could see the empty deck. No sign of him on the beach below either. I checked the garage through the interior door. His Tesla was gone. On the kitchen island, I spotted a note in his familiar scrawl. "Gone to pick up breakfast and more champagne. Back soon. Love you." I smiled, sipping my coffee as I wandered through our new home in the morning light. Everything looked different now. More real, more ours. The open floor plan I'd fallen in love with at the showing flowed seamlessly from the gourmet kitchen to the dining area, to the sunken living room with its stone fireplace. Floor-to-ceiling windows lined the ocean-facing wall, bringing the outside in with dramatic effect. We'd bought the place fully furnished, another expense that had made me wince but ultimately seemed worth it for the curated coastal luxury aesthetic that would have taken me years to recreate. Plush sofas in neutral tones, weathered wood tables, abstract art in blues and greens that echoed the ocean. It was like living in a spread from Architectural Digest. My phone chimed with a text from Ethan. "Traffic on PCH, be home in 20, bagels or waffles?" I texted back, "Both. I'm starving." With time to kill, I decided to start unpacking the essentials. I had just opened a box of kitchen items when my phone alerted me to another motion detection at the front door. Thinking Ethan had returned earlier than expected, I checked the camera feed. It wasn't Ethan. Patricia's silver Mercedes was pulling into our driveway again, but this time she wasn't alone. A man in his 60s, wearing a charcoal suit despite the early hour and warm day, emerged from the passenger side. He carried a leather briefcase and had the polished, affluent look of someone who made serious money managing other people's wealth. I glanced down at my robe and bare feet, not exactly how I wanted to receive visitors, especially not my mother-in-law, who would undoubtedly find a way to comment on my state of undress. Quickly, I retreated to the bedroom, throwing on jeans and a sweater and running a brush through my tangled hair. The doorbell rang just as I was applying a hasty coat of mascara. "Coming!" I called out, hurrying through the house. I opened the door to find Patricia and her companion waiting, both wearing expressions of mild surprise at my appearance. "Mia," Patricia said, her tone suggesting she'd forgotten I lived here. "Good morning." "Good morning, Patricia," I replied, forcing warmth into my voice. "This is a surprise. Is Ethan home?" she asked, peering past me into the house. "I've brought Martin to finalise the paperwork." "He's out getting breakfast," I explained. "He should be back in about 20 minutes. Would you like to come in and wait?" Patricia exchanged a glance with the man beside her. "I suppose we must. Mia, this is Martin Goldstein, my attorney. Martin, my son's wife, Mia." The man extended his hand. "Pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Wilson." "Please call me Mia," I said, shaking his hand. His grip was firm, his palm dry and cool. "And it's actually Chen Wilson. I kept my name professionally." Patricia made a small, disapproving noise in the back of her throat. "Would you like some coffee while you wait?" I offered, leading them into the kitchen. "That would be lovely," Martin said, before Patricia could refuse. As I poured coffee into our newly unpacked mugs, I tried to make sense of this visit. What paperwork needed to be finalised that required an attorney? And why hadn't Ethan mentioned anything about it? "So, Martin," I said, handing him a steaming mug, "what brings you to our new home so early on a Saturday?" Martin glanced at Patricia, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. "Just some routine matters regarding the property transfer," he replied smoothly. "Nothing that should concern you." Property transfer? The phrase set off alarm bells in my head. "I think anything involving our new home would concern me," I said carefully. "Ethan and I purchased this property together." Patricia's smile was tight. "Martin is simply being thorough, Mia. These are matters Ethan has already discussed with me." "What matters exactly?" I pressed, my unease growing by the second. Before either could answer, we heard the front door open. "Mia, I got both bagels and waffles, and mimosa supplies." Ethan's voice called out cheerfully from the entryway. He appeared in the kitchen doorway a moment later, arms laden with bags from local eateries. His smile faltered when he saw our visitors. "Mum, Martin, what are you doing here?" Patricia rose to greet him with a kiss on the cheek. "We came to finalise the transfer, darling. I know it's early, but Martin has a flight to catch this afternoon." Ethan's eyes darted to me, then back to his mother. "I thought we agreed to wait a few weeks." "Why wait?" Patricia said briskly. "Everything's in order. The sooner it's done, the sooner I can start planning the renovations." "Renovations?" I echoed, looking between them. "What renovations?" An uncomfortable silence fell over the kitchen. Martin sipped his coffee, suddenly very interested in the ocean view. Patricia smoothed an invisible wrinkle from her linen pants. Ethan set the food bags on the counter with exaggerated care. "Ethan," I said, my voice deceptively calm, "what is going on?" He ran a hand through his hair, that nervous tell again. "Mia, let's discuss this privately." "No," I said firmly. "Whatever this is involves our home, and apparently renovations I know nothing about. So please enlighten me. What property transfer are you finalising?" Patricia stepped forward. "I'll handle this, Ethan. Mia, there's no need for dramatics. Ethan has simply decided to transfer ownership of this house to me." The words hit me like a physical blow. "He what?" "It makes perfect sense," Patricia continued, as if explaining something to a particularly slow child. "I've been looking for a retirement property, and this house is ideal. Ethan and I discussed it weeks ago." I turned to Ethan, hoping, praying, for him to contradict her. "Is this true?" His expression was all the confirmation I needed. Guilt, discomfort, and a plea for understanding all mingled in his eyes. "Mum needs a place to retire, Mia. Her arthritis is getting worse, and her current house has too many stairs." "So you gave her our house?" The words came out as a strangled whisper. "The house we just bought yesterday? The house we spent 5 years saving for?" "I'm compensating him fairly," Patricia interjected. "More than the purchase price, actually. You'll be able to buy an even nicer property." My head was spinning. "When exactly were you planning to tell me about this, Ethan? After I unpacked all our things? After I started my hour-long commute from here to the office? Or were you just going to surprise me one day with, 'Honey, we need to move because I gave our dream house to my mother'?" "Mia, please," Ethan pleaded. "I was going to tell you today. That's why I went out for champagne. I wanted to explain everything properly." Over mimosas? You were going to tell me you'd given away our house over mimosas? My voice was rising now, trembling with the effort of containing my rage and hurt. Martin cleared his throat uncomfortably. Perhaps I should wait outside. No, stay, I said, my eyes never leaving Ethan's face. I want to understand exactly what's happening here. Did you actually sign documents transferring our house to your mother? Not yet, Ethan admitted. That's what today is about. The preliminary agreement was signed yesterday, Patricia added unhelpfully. Today is just the formal transfer. I felt like I might be sick. Yesterday? When I saw you signing something on the deck, that was this. You were already planning to give away our house the day we moved in. It's not like that, Ethan protested. Mum needs this house more than we do. We're young, we can start over. She's retiring next year. This location is perfect for her, close to her friends, easy beach access for her water therapy. Stop, I cut him off. Just stop. I turned to Martin. I own half of this house. My name is on the deed. Doris. He can't transfer it without my consent. Martin's expression was carefully neutral. That's correct, legally speaking. Both parties would need to consent to any transfer of ownership. Which is why we hope to discuss this rationally, Patricia said, her tone condescending. Ethan assured me you'd understand once he explained the situation. I laughed bitterly. Understand? You think I'd understand him giving away our dream home, that I paid for with my inheritance and years of savings, without even consulting me? You're being selfish, Mia, Patricia said sharply. This house would be wasted on you two. You're never home, always working. I would actually appreciate it properly. That's enough. Mum, Ethan said, surprising me. Mia's right to be upset. I should have discussed this with her first. There's nothing to discuss, I said, my voice dangerously quiet now. I will never agree to this. Never. Patricia's face hardened. Ethan, perhaps you should speak with your wife privately. Help her see reason. There is no seeing reason here, I retorted. This is our home. We bought it together. End of story. Actually, Martin interjected cautiously, there may be a complicating factor. He opened his briefcase and removed a document. According to the preliminary agreement, Mr. Wilson signed yesterday, he's already accepted a significant down payment from Mrs. Wilson Sr. How significant? I asked. $500,000, Martin replied. Transferred to your joint account yesterday afternoon. I turned to Ethan, incredulous. You accepted money for our house without telling me. He at least had the decency to look ashamed. I was going to surprise you. With the money, we could put a down payment on an even better property, somewhere in Pacific Palisades maybe, or... I don't want another property, I exploded. I want this house. The house we chose together. The house I poured my savings into. The house where we're supposed to start our family. Patricia scoffed. Don't be melodramatic, Mia. It's just a house. There are plenty of others. Something inside me snapped. All the accumulated resentment from a year of Patricia's subtle digs, passive-aggressive comments, and now this breathtaking betrayal came boiling to the surface. Get out, I said, my voice deadly calm. Both of you, get out of my house, now. Mia, Ethan began. You too, I cut him off. I need space. I need to think, and I can't do that with any of you here. Patricia looked to Ethan, clearly expecting him to contradict me. When he remained silent, her expression hardened. Very well. We'll give you time to calm down and see reason. Come along, Martin. She swept toward the door, Martin following awkwardly behind. At the threshold, she turned back. Ethan, call me when she's ready to be reasonable. When the front door closed behind them, Ethan and I stood in brittle silence. The beautiful kitchen that had so delighted me yesterday now felt like a stage set for the most painful moment of my life. Mia, Ethan finally said, his voice pleading. I'm sorry. I should have told you. Told me, I echoed. You shouldn't have done it at all. How could you, Ethan? How could you make a decision like this without me? Mom can be very persuasive, he said weakly. She started talking about her retirement. about how perfect this house would be for her health needs, how she's been so lonely since Dad died. You know how she gets. So you just gave her our house? The house we stretched ourselves thin to afford? The house we talked about raising our children in? My voice broke on the last word. We can still have all that, Ethan insisted. Just in a different house. Mum's paying us $2.3 million. That's $500,000 more than we paid. We can find something even better. I stared at him, truly seeing him for perhaps the first time. This isn't about the money, Ethan. It's about you making a massive decision that affects both of us without even consulting me. It's about you putting your mother's wishes above our shared dreams. She's family, he said, as if that explained everything. And what am I? I demanded. I'm your wife. I'm supposed to be your partner. You are, he insisted. This doesn't change that. It changes everything, I said quietly. I don't even know who you are right now. I moved past him toward the bedroom, needing to be anywhere he wasn't. He caught my arm gently. Mia, please. Let's talk about this. I know I messed up, but we can fix it. I pulled away. Not now, Ethan. I need time. In the bedroom, I closed the door and sank onto the bed, still unmade from our lovemaking the night before. Tears burned behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Instead, I reached for my phone and pulled up the banking app for our joint account. There it was, a transfer from Patricia Wilson for $500,000, time-stamped 4:28 p.m. yesterday, less than 2 hours after we'd gotten the keys to our new home. The betrayal was so complete, so calculated, that it left me breathless. While I'd been setting up security cameras and dreaming of our future, Ethan had been arranging to sell our dream out from under me. A knock on the bedroom door. Mia, the food's getting cold. I'm not hungry, I called back, my voice steadier than I felt. You need to eat something. What I need, I said, is for you to leave me alone. Silence from the other side of the door. Then, I'll be on the deck when you're ready to talk. I heard his footsteps retreat, and then nothing but the sound of waves crashing against the shore. The same sound that had seemed so magical yesterday now felt like a cruel reminder of how quickly dreams could be washed away. I lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of what had happened. How had we gone from christening our dream home to this nightmare in less than 24 hours? Had Ethan always been this susceptible to his mother's manipulation, and I'd just been too in love to see it? Or was this new, a side of him emerging only now that we were married? My phone buzzed with a text from my best friend, Jen. How's the beach house? Living the dream yet? The irony was too much. I dialed her number instead of texting back. Hey, homeowner, she answered cheerfully. How's paradise? It's... My voice cracked, and suddenly the tears I'd been holding back came in a flood. Jen, it's all falling apart. What? What happened? Her tone shifted immediately to concern, between sobs. I recounted the events of the last 24 hours, Patricia's visit, the signed agreement, the money transfer, everything. That manipulative witch. Jen breathed when I'd finished. And Ethan just went along with it, without even talking to you. He says he was going to tell me today, I said, wiping my eyes. As if that makes it better. It doesn't, Jen agreed vehemently. Mia, this is beyond messed up. What are you going to do? I don't know, I admitted. Legally, he can't transfer the house without my signature. But the fact that he even tried, that he took money from her. Have you considered that this might be financial abuse? Jen asked carefully. Making huge financial decisions without your consent, trying to control your living situation. I hadn't thought of it in those terms, but the label fit uncomfortably well. I don't think he sees it that way. In his mind, he's just helping his mother. At your expense, Jen pointed out. Listen, do you want me to come over? I can be there in an hour. Part of me wanted to say yes, to have an ally in this nightmare, but another part knew I needed to handle this directly with Ethan. Not yet, I decided. I need to talk to him first. Figure out where we go from here. Call me anytime, Jen insisted. Day or night. And Mia, don't let them steamroll you. That house is yours too. After we hung up, I sat for a long time, gathering my thoughts and my courage. Finally, I washed my face, squared my shoulders, and went to find my husband. Ethan was on the deck as promised, staring out at the ocean. He turned when he heard the sliding door open, his expression a mix of hope and apprehension. "Mia," I held up a hand to stop him. "I'm going to talk and you're going to listen." He nodded, sinking into one of the deck chairs. I remained standing, needing the advantage of height for what I had to say. "When we met, what I loved most about you was your integrity," I began. "You were honest, straightforward, someone I could trust completely. I never had to wonder where I stood with you." Ethan's eyes dropped to his hands. "Yesterday, you broke that trust in the most fundamental way possible. You made a life-altering decision without me. You prioritized your mother's wishes over our shared dreams. And worst of all, you lied to me, by omission at first, and then directly when I asked you what was happening." "I'm sorry," he said softly. "I got caught up in Mum's plan. She made it sound so reasonable, so necessary. I convinced myself you'd understand once I explained." "That's not how partnerships work," I said firmly. "We make big decisions together, always. That was our agreement from day one." "I know," he acknowledged. "I messed up, badly. But Mia, we can fix this. I'll call Mum right now and tell her the deal is off. We'll return the money." I studied his face, searching for sincerity. "And what happens the next time she wants something that conflicts with what we want? What happens when she needs something else more than we do?" He flinched at hearing his own words thrown back at him. "That's not fair." "None of this is fair," I countered. "But it's reality. Your mother has always seen me as temporary, as an obstacle between you and whatever perfect life she's imagined for you. And until now, you've always stood with me. What changed, Ethan?" He was quiet for a long moment. "She's getting older," he finally said. "Dad's been gone 3 years now. She's lonely in that big house. When she saw this place, she lit up in a way I haven't seen since before Dad died. She started talking about having us over for dinner on the weekends. About hosting Christmas here, about finally having a place where the whole family could gather." "And you believed her?" I asked incredulously. "The woman who spent the last year trying to undermine our relationship at every turn." "She's still my mother," Ethan said, a defensive edge creeping into his voice. "And she's not as bad as you make her out to be." I laughed bitterly. "She just tried to steal our house, Ethan. I'd say that's pretty bad." "She didn't steal anything," he protested. "She's paying us more than market value." "This isn't about money," I exploded. "It's about respect. It's about treating me like an equal partner in this marriage. Not some accessory you can override whenever Mummy wants something." The words hung in the air between us, harsh but true. Ethan's face crumpled. "You're right. I've been an idiot. A complete, spineless idiot." He stood, moving toward me. "I'll fix this, Mia. I promise. No house, no amount of money is worth losing you." I wanted to believe him. God, how I wanted to. But the image of him signing those papers behind my back kept flashing in my mind. "I need to know that you're with me, Ethan. Completely with me. Not caught between me and your mother." "I am," he insisted, taking my hands in his. "I'm with you. Always." "Prove it," I said, pulling away slightly. "Call her now. Tell her the deal is off. Tell her we're keeping our house." He hesitated just for a fraction of a second, but it was enough. I saw it in his eyes. The conflict, the reluctance. "You can't do it," I said quietly. "Even now you can't stand up to her." "That's not true," he protested. "I'll call her right now." He pulled out his phone, but his fingers hovered over the screen without making the call. I waited, my heart breaking a little more with each passing second. When he finally looked up at me, his expression was agonized. "I just need to find the right words," he said weakly. "She'll be so disappointed." In that moment, everything became clear. This wasn't just about the house. It was about a pattern that would repeat itself throughout our marriage if I allowed it. Patricia would always come first, Her needs, her wants, her approval, all would take precedence over mine. I want my name taken off the joint account, I said, my decision made. I want my half of the down payment and my inheritance back. You can explain to your mother that she'll need to find another retirement property. Ethan's face paled. Mia, no, don't do this. We can work it out. I'm not leaving you, I clarified, though the thought had certainly crossed my mind. Not yet, but I am protecting myself financially until we figure out where we go from here. You don't trust me, he said, sounding wounded. You haven't given me reason to, I pointed out. Not in the last 24 hours. He looked as if I'd slapped him. But he didn't argue. What do you want me to do? First, call the bank and stop any further transfers from that account. Then call your mother and tell her the truth, that you made a mistake, that the house isn't for sale. And finally, start thinking about what kind of marriage you actually want. Because right now it feels like you're still more her son than my husband. Without waiting for his response, I turned and walked back into the house. Behind me, I heard him dial a number, heard the beginning of a conversation with the bank. It was a start. But as I moved through the rooms that had represented so much hope just a day ago, I wondered if any amount of financial rectification could repair the broken trust between us. Some damages, I was beginning to realise, might be beyond fixing. I spent the rest of the day unpacking in silence, moving methodically from room to room, as if physical activity could somehow exorcise the turmoil inside me. Ethan alternated between helping quietly and making calls, to the bank, to his mother, a conversation I deliberately avoided overhearing, and finally to Martin, presumably to cancel whatever transfer had been planned. By evening, we had reached an uneasy truce. The money had been returned to Patricia. Our individual accounts had been separated from the joint one, and we had agreed to speak with a marriage counsellor as soon as possible. She's not happy, Ethan admitted as we ate takeout on the deck, watching the sunset paint the ocean in fiery oranges and reds. She thinks you're overreacting. I set down my fork. Appetite gone. Of course she does. But I told her she was wrong, he continued, surprising me. I told her what we did was inappropriate and disrespectful to you, that this is our home, not hers. I studied his face in the fading light. And she accepted that? He laughed without humour. No, she suggested I have you sign a post-nuptial agreement to protect my assets. Her words, not mine. Charming, I murmured. And what did you say to that? I told her to stop, that if she couldn't respect my wife and my marriage, she wouldn't be welcome in our home. His voice was quiet but firm. It was more of a stand than he'd ever taken with Patricia before, and despite everything, I felt a flicker of hope. Thank you for that. He reached across the table, tentatively taking my hand. I meant what I said earlier. No house, no amount of money. Nothing is worth losing you. I'll do whatever it takes to rebuild your trust. I wanted to believe him, but trust, once broken, is like a vase that's been shattered. You can glue the pieces back together, but the cracks remain visible, a permanent reminder of the damage done. It's going to take time, I said honestly, and work, from both of us. He nodded solemnly. I know, and I'm ready for that. We sat in silence as darkness fell, the sound of waves our only company. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, telling friends and family what had happened, finding a therapist, learning how to move forward in a relationship fundamentally altered by betrayal. But for now, we had this. A fragile peace, a tentative beginning of reconciliation, and a house that was still, officially ours. Or so I thought. The next morning, I woke early, determined to salvage what I could of our first weekend in our new home. Ethan was still asleep, his face relaxed in a way it hadn't been since Patricia's first visit. I slipped out of bed quietly, pulled on yoga pants and a sweatshirt, and headed to the kitchen to make coffee. As the machine hummed to life, I checked my phone and found a missed call from Jen. It was barely 7 a.m., too early for casual conversation. I called her back immediately. Hey, she answered on the first ring. How are you holding up? Better than yesterday, I said. watching the coffee drip into the pot. Ethan returned the money and told his mother off. We're going to try counselling. That's good, I guess, Jen said, sounding hesitant. But there's something you should know. That's why I called so early. A knot formed in my stomach. What is it? I was curious about this whole house situation, so I did some digging. My cousin works at a title company, and I asked her to check the property records for your address. And, I prompted, dreading her answer. Mia, the deed was transferred yesterday afternoon. Your house is now legally in Patricia Wilson's name. The coffee mug slipped from my hand, shattering on the kitchen floor. That's not possible. Ethan promised me he'd stopped it. I never signed anything. That's the thing, Jen said grimly. According to the records, you did. There's a deed transfer with both your signatures on it. The room seemed to tilt around me. She forged my signature. It looks that way, Jen confirmed. The transfer was processed at 3:47 p.m. yesterday. The documents were submitted electronically. While Ethan and I had been having our heart-to-heart on the deck, while he'd been promising to fix things, the house had already been taken from us. And my signature, or a reasonable facsimile, had made it possible. I need to go, I said, my voice sounding distant even to my own ears. I need to talk to Ethan. Call me after, Jen insisted. And Mia, consider calling a lawyer. This is serious. I hung up and stood motionless in the kitchen, coffee pooling around the broken mug at my feet. The magnitude of the betrayal was almost incomprehensible. Not just taking our dream home, but forging my name to do it. It went beyond manipulation into criminal territory. And Ethan? Had he known? Had his contrition yesterday been genuine, or just another performance to keep me placated while his mother secured her prize? I heard movement from the bedroom. Then Ethan's voice calling my name. Seconds later, he appeared in the kitchen doorway, concerned. Mia, I heard something break. Are you... He stopped short, taking in my expression and the mess on the floor. What happened? The house is gone, I said flatly. It's in your mother's name. The transfer went through yesterday afternoon. His face registered genuine shock. That's not possible. I called Martin, I stopped it. Well, someone forged my signature on a deed transfer, I said, my voice rising. And the property records already show your mother as the owner. I didn't know, Ethan insisted, his face pale. Mia, you have to believe me. I had no idea. For once, I did believe him. The horror in his eyes couldn't be faked, but that only raised more questions. If you didn't know, then who did this? Who had access to my signature? Who could have submitted those documents? Ethan's expression shifted from shock to something darker. Mum, it had to be. She must have gone ahead with it even after I told her to stop. With Martin's help, I added. They needed a notary for the transfer. Martin would do whatever she paid him to do, Ethan said bitterly. He's been her fixer for years. I stepped carefully over the broken mug and spilled coffee. We need to call the police. This is forgery. It's fraud. Ethan ran a hand through his hair. Let me call her first. Maybe there's an explanation. An explanation for forging my signature? I asked incredulously. Ethan, wake up. Your mother stole our house. There's no innocent explanation for that. I know, he said quickly. If we go to the police, this becomes a whole legal mess. Maybe we can resolve this more simply. I stared at him, wondering if he was really that naive. She committed a crime, Ethan, a serious one. This isn't something we can just smooth over with a family chat. Just let me talk to her, he pleaded. Give me an hour. If she doesn't agree to reverse the transfer immediately, we'll call the police, hire a lawyer, whatever you want. I wanted to refuse, to grab my phone and dial 911 right then. But the desperation in his eyes gave me pause. This was his mother, after all. Despite everything, he still wanted to believe the best of her. 1 hour, I agreed reluctantly. But I'm calling a lawyer regardless. We need to know our options. Ethan nodded gratefully. Thank you. I'll make this right, I promise. He pulled out his phone and retreated to the deck to make the call, closing the sliding door behind him for privacy. I cleaned up the broken mug and spilled coffee, my mind racing with questions and fears. How had Patricia gotten access to my signature? What would it take to reverse the transfer? And most troublingly, how could I ever feel secure in my marriage after this? As I wiped the last of the coffee from the floor, my gaze fell on the security camera feed displayed on my phone, which I'd left on the counter. The deck camera showed Ethan pacing back and forth, phone to his ear, gesturing animatedly. His back was to the house, his expression hidden from me. On impulse, I opened the security app and turned on the audio recording feature for the deck camera, something I hadn't activated before out of respect for our privacy, but privacy seemed a moot point now, given the circumstances. Ethan's voice came through my phone speaker, tinny but clear. "Can't believe you did this, Mom. We talked about this. I told you the deal was off." Patricia's response was inaudible, but Ethan's reaction was immediate. "Forging Mia's signature. Do you realise that's a felony? You could go to jail for this." Another pause, then Ethan again, his voice rising in disbelief. "No, I will not calm down. You stole our house, you betrayed my trust, you broke the law, and you've potentially destroyed my marriage." I watched him run a hand through his hair, that nervous gesture again, as he listened to whatever justification Patricia was offering. "It doesn't matter what you think of her," he snapped. "She's my wife. This is our home. You had no right." His posture stiffened suddenly. "What did you just say?" A longer pause. "That's not true. Mia would never—" Another interruption. "You're lying. You're trying to shift blame because you know you've gone too far this time." I frowned, wondering what Patricia was claiming I'd done. "I don't believe you," Ethan continued, "and even if it were true, it wouldn't justify what you did." He was silent for several moments, listening. Then, "No, Mum. No more excuses. You need to reverse the transfer. Today. Call Martin, tell him there was a mistake. Do whatever it takes. If you don't, Mia wants to go to the police, and honestly, I'm starting to think she's right." Another pause, longer this time. Ethan's shoulders slumped slightly. "I don't want it to come to that either. That's why I'm giving you this chance to fix it." He listened again, then shook his head. "I'm not threatening you. I'm telling you what will happen if you don't make this right." He turned slightly, and I caught a glimpse of his profile, jaw clenched, eyes hard. This was a side of Ethan I'd rarely seen, the protective fierceness usually reserved for defending me against overbearing clients or aggressive drivers. "I mean it, Mom. You have until noon. Either the transfer is reversed or we're filing a police report and hiring a lawyer." He paused, then added, "And regardless of what happens with the house, I think we need some distance. What you've done, it's going to take me a long time to forgive." With that, he ended the call and stood motionless for several moments, staring out at the ocean. I quickly closed the security app, not wanting him to know I'd been eavesdropping. By the time he came back inside, I was sitting at the kitchen island with my laptop open, researching real estate attorneys. "Well?" I asked, looking up as he entered. Ethan's expression was grim. "She admits she went ahead with the transfer, says she thought I was just momentarily swayed by your dramatic reaction and would come to my senses, eventually." "And the forgery?" I pressed. "She claims she had a power of attorney document I signed months ago that gave her authority to act on my behalf." He shook his head in disgust. "Which might explain how she signed my name, but not yours. Did she have an explanation for that?" Ethan hesitated, his expression uncomfortable. She implied that you had agreed to the transfer initially, that you signed preliminary paperwork when she first visited, and then changed your mind." I stared at him, incredulous. "That's a blatant lie. I never signed anything. I didn't even know about this scheme until yesterday morning." "I know," Ethan said quickly. "I told her she was lying." "She's not just lying, she's trying to frame me," I said, anger building in my chest. "She's trying to make it look like I'm the unreasonable one. The one going back on an agreement." "I don't believe her," Ethan assured me. "Not for a second." But the fact that she'd even try that tactic… I shook my head, disgusted. She's not just manipulative, Ethan. She's dangerous. He didn't argue, which was telling in itself. I gave her until noon to reverse the transfer. If she doesn't, we call the police and a lawyer. I nodded, turning back to my laptop. I'm already looking for attorneys who specialise in real estate fraud, and I think we should document everything, the security footage from her visits, your conversations with her, anything that proves we didn't authorise this transfer. Ethan came around the island and placed a hand on my shoulder. I'm so sorry, Mia. I never imagined she'd go this far. I covered his hand with mine, a small gesture of solidarity despite my lingering anger and hurt. I know. But Ethan, this can't happen again. Not ever. Your mother needs to understand that our marriage has boundaries she can't cross. She will, he promised. One way or another she'll learn that lesson today. We spent the next few hours in tense preparation, downloading security footage, making notes of every interaction with Patricia and Martin, gathering bank statements showing our mortgage payments and the suspicious transfer. I called 3 attorneys, leaving messages explaining our situation and requesting urgent consultations. At 11:58 a.m, Ethan's phone rang. Patricia's name flashed on the screen. He answered on speaker. Mum. Ethan, darling. Her voice was artificially bright. I've spoken with Martin. He agrees there may have been some confusion with the paperwork. Not confusion, Ethan corrected firmly. Fraud. Patricia sighed dramatically. Such an ugly word. Let's just say there was a misunderstanding that needs to be corrected. And is it being corrected? I interjected, unable to remain silent. A pause. Mia, I didn't realise you were listening. It's my house you stole, I replied evenly. Of course I'm involved in this conversation. Another sigh. As I was telling Ethan, Martin is preparing documents to reverse the transfer. They should be ready this afternoon. Not good enough, Ethan said, surprising me with his firmness. We need confirmation that the process has started, an email from Martin to both of us, detailing exactly what's being done and when it will be completed. Really, Ethan, this suspicion is completely warranted. He cut her off. You forged signatures and stole property. You've lost the right to be offended by our lack of trust. The silence that followed was so lengthy I wondered if she'd hung up. Finally, Patricia spoke again, her voice noticeably cooler. Very well. I'll have Martin send the email within the hour. Will that satisfy you? For now, Ethan replied. But Mum, we need to be clear about something. What you did was criminal. If the transfer isn't reversed exactly as promised, we will press charges. And regardless, things can't go back to the way they were. You've broken our trust in a fundamental way. I was only trying to help, Patricia protested. You're young. You have your whole lives ahead of you. I thought having the financial boost from the house sale would give you more options, more freedom. That wasn't your decision to make, I said, keeping my voice steady despite my anger. If you truly wanted to help, you could have offered financial support without taking our home. Water under the bridge now, Patricia said dismissively. Let's focus on moving forward. Ethan caught my eye, a look of understanding passing between us. His mother would never truly acknowledge the gravity of what she'd done. In her world, her actions were always justified, her intentions always pure. We'll expect Martin's email, Ethan said, clearly deciding to end the conversation before it deteriorated further. And Mum? Don't come to the house. Not today, not next week. We'll let you know when, if we're ready to see you. He ended the call before she could respond. The kitchen fell silent except for the distant sound of waves. She'll never admit she was wrong, I said quietly. Ethan nodded, his expression resigned. No, she won't. But at least she's fixing it. Is she, though? Can we trust anything she says at this point? No, he admitted. That's why we're not cancelling any lawyer appointments. Not until the house is legally back in our names. I studied his face, seeing the strain of the past 2 days etched in the tight lines around his eyes, the set of his jaw. This is hard for you. Not as hard as losing you would be, he said simply. I made my choice yesterday, Mia. I chose you. I chose us. I just wish I'd done it sooner. It wasn't a complete resolution. We still had legal battles ahead, trust to rebuild, boundaries to establish. But it was a start. A commitment to fight for what was ours, together. True to her word, or perhaps fearful of the consequences if she wasn't, Patricia had Martin send a detailed email within the hour. The documents to reverse the fraudulent transfer had been filed, with expedited processing requested. The house would be legally ours again within 72 hours. We spent the rest of the day in a strange limbo, technically homeless in our own home, wary of Patricia attempting some new deception, yet cautiously optimistic that the worst was behind us. By evening, exhaustion had set in, and we collapsed into bed early, too drained for conversation. As I drifted towards sleep, Ethan's arm wrapped securely around me, I realised something important. The house itself, beautiful as it was, mattered less to me than what it represented. It was a symbol of our partnership, our shared dreams, our future together. Patricia hadn't just tried to take the physical structure, she'd attempted to undermine the foundation of our marriage. She had failed. And in that failure, ironically, she had forced us to strengthen our commitment to each other, to define our boundaries more clearly than we ever had before. The next few months wouldn't be easy. There would be legal proceedings, family tension, trust to rebuild. But we would face it together, in our house, on our terms. The waves crashed rhythmically against the shore below our window, a sound that would now forever remind me of both betrayal and redemption. As I finally surrendered to sleep, I made a silent promise to myself. No one, not Patricia, not anyone, would ever come between us again. This house was ours. This marriage was ours. And we would protect both with everything we had. 3 months later, I stood on our deck watching the sunset paint the Pacific Ocean in shades of amber and gold. The house was truly ours now, legally, emotionally, unequivocally. The fraudulent transfer had been reversed. Patricia's attempts to justify her actions had fallen flat with the authorities, and we had established boundaries that even she couldn't ignore. Ethan joined me, handing me a glass of wine. "Penny, for your thoughts?" I smiled, leaning into him as his arm circled my waist. Just thinking about how far we've come. And we had come far. The days following Patricia's betrayal had been brutal. Legal consultations, police reports, family drama that threatened to tear us apart. Patricia had cycled through denial. Anger, bargaining, and finally a reluctant acceptance that her actions had consequences she couldn't charm or buy her way out of. The district attorney had agreed not to press criminal charges in exchange for Patricia paying all legal fees associated with rectifying the property transfer, plus a substantial donation to a housing charity. It was less punishment than she deserved, perhaps, but it allowed us to avoid a protracted court battle that would have kept the wound fresh. More importantly, Ethan had stood firmly by my side through all of it. He had confronted his mother's manipulation, set clear boundaries, and even initiated therapy for himself to address the patterns that had allowed her to control him for so long. Our marriage counselling sessions had been challenging but necessary, forcing us to examine how we communicated, how we made decisions, and how we protected our relationship from outside influences. We weren't perfect. There were still moments of tension, still trust being rebuilt, but we were stronger than before. "I talked to the rental agency today," Ethan said, sipping his wine. "They think we can get $8,000 a week during the summer months." We had decided to proceed with our original plan to rent the house during peak tourist season. The extra income would help offset the mortgage and give us flexibility for the future. "That's amazing," I said. "Between that and my promotion, we'll be in great shape financially." My career had flourished in recent months. The stress of the house situation had somehow translated into a laser focus at work, resulting in a major client acquisition that had earned me a significant promotion and raise. "Have you thought more about what we discussed last week?" Ethan asked, his tone careful. Last week, our conversation about starting a family. The one dream that had been temporarily deferred by the chaos of recent months. "I have," I admitted. "And I think I'm ready if you are." His eyes lit up. "Really? You're sure?" I nodded, feeling a certainty I hadn't experienced in months. The house is secure, our marriage is stronger, my job is stable with good maternity benefits, and honestly, after everything we've been through, creating something positive together feels right. Ethan kissed me, a kiss full of promise and future plans. I love you, Mia Chen Wilson, more than any house, more than anything. I love you too, I replied, resting my head on his shoulder as we turned back to watch the sunset. The security camera above us captured the moment silently, a reminder of how this whole saga had begun, with a glimpse of betrayal caught on film. But now those same cameras represented security and peace of mind. They had protected us when we needed it most, revealing a truth we might otherwise have missed. Inside our beach house, boxes were still being unpacked, some for the second time. Pictures were being hung, furniture arranged, a home being created. It wasn't the seamless beginning we had imagined on that first day with the keys, but it was ours. Every challenge overcome, every boundary established, every compromise reached, had made this place more truly our own. And as for Patricia, she had retreated to her hillside mansion, our relationship with her forever altered but not completely severed. Ethan spoke with her monthly, carefully enforcing the boundaries we had established. She would never be the mother-in-law I had hoped for, but she was learning, slowly, reluctantly, to respect our marriage. Some broken things can never be fully restored, but sometimes in the repairing, they become stronger at the broken places. Our marriage, tested by betrayal and strengthened by commitment, was proof of that. The sun slipped below the horizon, painting the sky in deepening shades of purple. Ethan's arm tightened around me as the first stars appeared. Our first chapter here wasn't what we planned, he said softly, but we get to write all the rest of them together. I smiled, thinking of the pregnancy test hidden in my bathroom drawer, waiting for morning, thinking of the future stretching before us, challenging but bright. Yes, I agreed, raising my glass in a toast. To our house, our marriage, our story. To us, Ethan echoed, all the way. In the distance, waves crashed against the shore, the soundtrack of our life together. Constant, powerful, enduring, just like us. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left.